if grandma gets a phone call from her grandson that he's been put in jail and it sounds like his grandson,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be her grandson.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a deep fake. And the
Mm-hmm.
single best question you can ask is, yeah, Johnny, I know you're in jail and I know you need bail money and I'm happy to help. However, you know we have a family safe word. What is it? Even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have one, pretend to have one because suddenly Johnny will hang up and say, oh, darn it, I
That's
found
true.
one.
The hackers think, uh-oh, we got one of these
We got
families.
a smart person on the call.
Hello and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Show. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the Queen of Online Safety. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad to have you all with us today because I've got a great guest and a great topic for you. Craig Taylor is a 25-year certified information system security professional known as a CISSP, which is a very well regarded certification within the cybersecurity community. And he has over 30 years of cybersecurity experience. Additionally, he founded and leads a cybersecurity consulting practice as a virtual chief security officer for large companies. So he's seen it all through helping all types of companies in different industries. He's also a Toastmaster and a Rotarian and a fundraiser who has raised over $130,000 in the last 10 years for cancer research alone. And what's really exciting, besides what a wonderful human being he is that over a decade ago, he founded a cybersecurity training company called CyberHoot, which I think is a hoot, to help teach the world cyber literacy. And so he and I share a vision and a mission for helping
Like
people
this.
live
Yeah.
safer, better lives. And he's led cybersecurity organizations at large web hosting platforms, finance like JP Morgan Chase, manufacturing like Vistaprint, and he's guided managed service providers or MSPs on cybersecurity best practices. So he's been in the trenches, fighting the good fight, protecting individuals and companies from hackers and scammers. And Craig Taylor, welcome to the show.
Jocelyn, thank you so much for that introduction. You honor me, but it doesn't always feel as that I there's just so much that I've done, but I never always stop to think about it. So thank you
Well,
for reminding me of
well, you're
how
welcome.
old I am.
And I think that's true for everybody, including everybody listening. I think we're always thinking about what we still are trying to accomplish, and we
Yeah,
forget the thousand things we've done already. So, hey, just a
so true.
reminder to everybody listening, maybe you just assess a few things you're proud of today to help to remind you why you know you're going to be successful in the next things you're doing because you've already done it. So we'll start with that. One of the ways I like to start this show, Craig, is all of us who got into cybersecurity got in for a reason. I've shared my story with listeners and people who come on talk about what got them in. It's usually something personal or close to home or an interest. What
Mhm.
got you into this field?
It's a great question, Jocelyn. So if I go back 30 years, I have a degree in psychology,
Mm,
and it was up in Canada. I took a multidisciplinary approach in my
mhm,
first year. It was called academia, and we were exposed to biologists and psychologists and a whole variety of different interdisciplinary studies. And I don't think I appreciated it at the time, but I have since recognized the value of looking at problems from multiple dimensions and directions. In particular, because cybersecurity, which we'll learn and talk about in the future, has been quite myopic.
mhm.
Uh,
That's true.
about how it approaches teaching cybersecurity, cyber smarts, that sort of thing. But I digress. I got my degree in psychology, did not want to do a PhD,
Hmm.
and what am I going to do with my life? I tried running a small business way, way back. It was an irrigation business of all things, not really putting my psychology to use.
Hmm.
But then fell into my first real cybersecurity job working for a firewall vendor. At the university where I had studied and done my undergraduate, I was also involved in their computer student support center. I was learning early internet protocols like email and file transfer protocol. What was no one knows what that is anymore, FTP, and a variety of other things. And so when this job became available for a firewall support engineer, I thought, Cybersecurity, I have a passing fascination with what I had been exposed to before. I think I might be able to do this. And so I bought the O'Reilly stack of books that was from here to here and read them through to
Yeah.
get the
About a
IP.
foot high. Yeah.
No, at least, if not more. And yeah, and so I bootstrapped myself because at that time, quite honestly, there was no cybersecurity university education, right?
Right.
You couldn't go
Right.
to school for it. You had to learn it basically on the job.
Hmm.
We were in the early days of the internet before, my goodness, if I go back that far, well, while I was at university, there was no www anything. That came after. So
Right.
I'm predate the World Wide Web. And to make a long story short, I went through 5 or so years of this, got my CISSP back in 2001. And that is not a trifling, sit for 30 minutes, pass an exam, and you're a CISSP. It was a 4-hour exam. I think at the time it was
I think
almost.
it's second only to trying to pass the bar if you're a lawyer.
Exactly, exactly. So it was not to be trifled with. And truth be told, I thought I failed it at the time, but I
Hmm.
passed.
Hmm.
And I remember to this day, this happened last week. I asked someone who people tell me, they text me now, I got my CISSP, Craig. You're the one that inspired me, or you started it way long ago. Their number was 3 million or
Hmm.
within 100,000 of 3 million. And my number was 24,399. So
Yeah.
I've been doing this for far too long. Not really.
Wow.
I
Wow.
really
But that's
love
great.
it.
Hmm.
The thing that I would tell people, say, do you like your job? Do you mind it? What is all this stuff? I really am fascinated with the world we live in and how it
Hmm.
pertains to cybersecurity. So it's like you hear in commencement speeches, it's June, follow your passions. But then someone last week on a podcast said, follow your fascinations, because you can be passionate about the Boston Bruins or about a Knicks team and drinking a beer for 3 hours watching the game. That's not what we need. We need fascination because that's a passion for something of betterment, bettering society, bettering yourself. And that's truly what I feel, especially in the world we live in today.
Right. Well,
So,
that's really important too, because your degree in psychology is what is something unique you bring to your cybersecurity. And I think I want to get into this a little bit and double click on it because
sure,
it's so much of protecting oneself from hackers and scammers is psychology. Because
100%.
I've said it a lot. I even just said it in my I said in my book that just came out, Digital Self-Defense in an AI World. I talk about the psychology because I like to say that hackers and scammers are better understand psychology better than psychologists and marketers. And I say that as a recovering marketer because because um, they're so good at knowing how to manipulate it, and then on top of it, they're able to program bots and everything to attack our psychological,
Makeup.
weaknesses and stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me so getting into cybersecurity with your psychology background, that
Mhm.
you brought something unique thing to the table there. How did all of that play out for you when you were looking at what was actually happening with cybercrime?
Well, cybersecurity for the past 25 years, 30 years of my experience has been convincing people to address the threats they didn't know they faced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cybersecurity is one of those areas of science that most people don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
In other
Very.
words,
Mm-hmm.
we're handed a computer, press the power button. If you need to use email, here's the client. If you need to use, whatever, here's our applications. Be safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a lot of instruction. You don't get it in
Right.
school, you don't get it in university. You almost never, up until say 10 years ago, got it in the job you were in where they taught you cyber literacy skills.
Mm-hmm.
So people were just left to their own devices and their own instincts, and that wasn't really enough. So my job as a cybersecurity person with a psychology background was to convince people through psychological means that this was in their own best interest, right? If you said, do this because it's a requirement, people would say, you can't tell me what to do. But if you explain the whys and the hows and use a little storytelling about this close incident, that incident, and how to avoid those things, right? my favorite simple example is when you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off, and if you react to that with your window down, are you going to do something that's respectable, or are you going to make something that is an obscene gesture, right? People react poorly. The point being, psychology says when you give a moment between the stimulus and the response, and you think about it for even a split second, you realize the person cutting you off has a pregnant woman in the front seat of the car and they're going to the hospital. You want to help them in that moment. You don't want to give them the bird. So it's all about reframing and contextualizing things. And if you can teach people to say, okay, you get this email, it's touching all your heartstrings or it's touching all your responsivities, like it wants you to act now in this specific moment. Those are the times you're being played and you need to pause, reflect for just a particularly just for a few seconds, and
Hmm.
you'll realize this is a ruse. It's a fake email. And then we've created my company a rubric to follow where you can identify the hallmarks of a phishing email. So you not
That's
only
great.
have
Yeah.
that reactionary pause, but you also know through muscle memory and practicing things, go to the sender. Oh, wait a minute, this isn't Microsoft. Or wait a minute, this isn't what I expected it to be. The sender, the subject, the greeting, the
Right.
emotional and language quality, the emotional cadence, the links, the attachments. If you know what you're looking for, you're not going to fall victim again as long as you
Right.
pause.
Right. I love that. Well, we've had some mindset experts on, like Jack Canfield himself,
Oh, okay.
the author of The Success Principles and Chicken Soup for the Soul, not the least
Yeah,
of which is really about your mindset and attitude and
right,
context, right?
right.
And we've talked a bit about that because you said something very important. It's what's in people's best interests. And part of human psychology is the study of figuring out why people don't do what's in their best interest. And
That's
when,
right.
like for instance, we all know we should eat well and exercise and
That's
stuff, and
right.
yet we have a little problem with that around the world and in the U.S. in particular, with obesity and lack of health and all this. So we know what we should do, and we
Right.
don't always do it. So I like that you framed this because there's psychology on the cyber crime side and there's psychology on the cybersecurity. So let's double click into this because you d- over half of your career was in protecting companies and understanding the psychology. And
Hmm.
then for the last third of your career, give or take, you
Hmm.
have been helping educate people of what they need to know that they don't know so that it
Yeah.
won't hurt them. So
Right.
let's talk about that because for people listening, first of all, let's just give a shout out. Everybody listening to a podcast called Smarter Online Safety is obviously above above average in the wanting to be smarter and safer category. So that's great. But we're
Exactly.
all surrounded by people who don't, and we all have our own ways where I'm sure there are people listening that have heard, top guests on here talk about you need to freeze your credit, you need to turn on two-factor authentication, you need to not reuse passwords. Let's
Bingo.
talk about the psychology of you know, of why people stay stuck, and also in particular why, how to overcome it. And I think there's a
100%.
two-pronged approach. One is, well, first of all, it can seem overwhelming and people don't know where to start. But
Right.
you're solving that, I'm solving that. There's ways that people can learn that in an easy way. The other is getting people to take action now before they become another statistic, right? So let's
Right.
let's
Right.
dig into that because you've got a rich background in that.
Thank you. And yes, you're exactly right. I think to answer that question, we
Hmm.
have to go back a little ways in people's general experience of cyber literacy, cybersecurity training. What little training we get,
Hmm.
unfortunately, for the last 25 years, Jocelyn, has been focused on bigger sticks,
Hmm.
punishment, and shame. What
Yes.
do I mean by that? I mean that in with the best of intentions, cybersecurity folks have glommed onto tools that send fake messages to our inboxes to prevent us from clicking on fake messages sent to our inboxes by
Mm.
hackers. In other words, they said, well, let's pretend to be hackers, send messages to our users, and when they click on links they shouldn't, at least it's us sending it, not the hacker, and we have an opportunity to teach them better habits at that moment.
Right.
It's based on very flawed psychology. For 75 years, we probably both know this, punished behaviors are never, ever extinguished. They crop back up the moment you don't think you'll be punished, the moment you don't realize it's part of the punishment cycle. And
Hmm.
it doesn't internalize things. It's an external locus of control, which is
Hmm.
fancy words for saying someone else is telling me to do this and I might or might not do it.
Right.
It has to become, I want to do it because I understand why this is important. That's an internal locus of control. The
Hmm.
only way you get to that internal knowledge is by rewarding good behaviors.
Hmm.
75 years again, operant conditioning, Pavlov and B.F. Skinner has recognized, and there's tons of studies that show this,
Hmm.
when you reward behaviors, they're repeated.
Hmm.
They are internalized. If you
Right.
do a good job of explaining the framework, the contextualization of things, like with our analogies and examples, I always use analogies and examples in everything I do to communicate with
Hmm.
my, what do we call them? Interested parties, the people I'm responsible for. I use analogies because they understand and then they suddenly can articulate and reframe it in their own experiences and say, yeah, that happened to me. Like the driving down the roadway, right?
Right.
That positive reinforcement
Hmm.
is absent largely throughout all of our cyber literacy education
Hmm.
for the last 25 years. And
Well, and doesn't that isn't that partly because I mean cybersecurity came out of the military, and in fact that's why
it
it's predominantly people coming out of the military tend to be in cybersecurity because it's about defense. And let us not forget the dark web was created as a tool by our own
under
government,
DARPA. Yeah.
to protect, to have a secured communication channel. So it is,
Yes.
and
All
the
true.
military is not famous for encouragement
Gentleness.
practice,
The new
gentle
mil
encouragement practices. So there, it's more about, you do this or you're going to get locked up or
well, right.
run 5 miles or something. So it, to your point, we're online safety for everyday people is
It
about
doesn't
being
work
in a
from the
promised land.
military
It's
way.
about being in a better place. It's not about
Yes.
doing it because somebody says you have to. It's about, hey, you can be safer and you can protect yourself and your family. And I think the other thing tied into all of that is whether or not you have agency, right? Because the command and control coming out of the military and that then is pervasive throughout all of cybersecurity is you're going to do this because the person who outranks you tells you to. And that's
Exactly.
not how civilians operate.
That is not how
Right.
civilians
We're going to
think.
do it because, like, well, why would this be a good thing? And are you going to make this simple enough so I don't feel like an idiot if I'm trying to do the right thing? Because
Right.
there's a lot of that. So I love that you're touching on this because the number one thing that I see with people who have gotten hacked, and I'll even go back to myself, full disclosure for me. I mean, I was doing a lot of the right things when I got devastated by cyber
Oh,
criminals and lost
yes.
my retirement. My
We've
20-year
spoken about
marriage
this.
imploded.
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, and I was on antidepressants and Ambien because it was a 2 year plus ordeal. And I was really concerned about my own physical safety. So with all of that, having somebody yelling at me in a book or online about what to do, and then my not even being sure it's going to make me safe, like.
Right. Not understanding all of it, right?
Right.
All at
Right. So
once.
who's going to want to do that? Right. And so I love that what you're doing, you've approached it totally differently. You've approached it from how to help people. Let's talk a little bit about
Well,
what
before
you're
we go
doing
on,
there
I
too.
want to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Jocelyn,
Yeah,
because I
please.
want people listening to this to understand.
Hmm.
Jocelyn went through hell and back. You heard marriage imploded, lost retirement savings. There was a litany of the worst possible outcomes you could come up with,
Hmm.
and yet she's stronger, better for it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And
That's
so
true.
anybody can get through these things with the right attitude, framing, support, help, and a positive reinforcement approach is what we're going to talk about next, probably. So don't lose hope if you're listening to this because the worst has happened to Jocelyn, and she is stronger and smarter and better for it in the long run. Not that we would ever wish that on anyone, right?
Right. Right.
I haven't gone through that myself, thank God. Knock on wood. I would
Hmm.
hope that I can avoid that. But the reality is, people are going through that. So
Right.
don't
And
lose
and
hope.
let's just say that too, because some people listening are on the fence about, well, it hasn't happened to me yet, so why should I?
Right.
But there are a number of people, probably about half from spot checking, not hard data here. Just shy of half have had some kind of scam, and that's why they're
Mhm.
listening to this. Because when you have a brush with danger, you are paying more attention to safety, and so they are listening. So I just want to say that too. The average, the FBI just published the average hack is now scam now costs the average person $20,699. That's the new total. That's the average, and
Oh
many of
my
them are 100,000 or more, which of course means some are around 5,000. But still, this is wiping out people's emergency funds, and that's
100%.
and that's not even
Life
from something
saving,
bad. Yeah, and
everything.
that's just from clicking on something or a bad phone call or giving information, which is
Mhm.
why the things that you're doing and the things that I'm looking at, we're both educators, right?
We are.
And equipping people with what to do. So it's really important. And I think especially AI being out there. In fact, for anybody watching me, the reason I was smiling when you were talking before about the command and control, I was even thinking about the positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. You use Claude, or no, you use ChatGPT on one end of the spectrum, and you use Grok on the other. Grok is going to tell you what about, it's a bad idea, whatever. And it chats like that cheerleader is like, that was a very creative approach. Yeah, like, I mean, it's just going to be very, effusive,
Yes.
trying to, encouraging you, oh, this is great, keep going. And in fact, you have to tell it
Stop doing that. Don't be a
yeah,
sycophant.
exactly,
Challenge
exactly,
me.
exactly. Challenge me and stuff. And with Grok, you have to sometimes tell it to tone it down a little.
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
so there's a psychology model in those AI as
100%.
well. And
Every part
AI
of the world.
plays so much into cybersecurity, personal self-protection, and corporate and government cybersecurity. So
Mhm.
so this is really good. So thank you for what you had said too, because there is so for people listening, you can recover. There are people who went through worse than I did who have recovered. And unfortunately, there's people who've gone through similar things to what I went through, or worse or less, who have not recovered because you can get frozen.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I understand that. And I'm very sympathetic having experienced it. So for everybody, and it's really hard to meet somebody who either hasn't gone through it or doesn't know a family member or a friend who's been scammed or hacked.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the kind of the times we live in. So let's get into what advice do you have when somebody's saying, "Oh my gosh, I almost got scammed or hacked." What are the types of things that you're working on educating people to do so that they can, get to safer ground somewhat quickly without having to go through all, huge education and all of that.
Well, I guess I should start by saying you can visit our website and get free access to all of our training. We
I
charge
love.
companies for this,
Hmm.
but everything we do is individualized and we send out videos and our special patent pending hootfish exercise, which the easiest analogy is the attack fish that we're talking about previously, where it sends it to your inbox, and if you click on it, you fail,
Hmm.
and then you're supposed to watch some video to learn how not to do that again.
Hmm.
But nobody watches the video. They give up in 10 seconds on average
Hmm.
because they're not in the right frame of mind
Hmm.
to learn anything after making a mistake.
Right.
It doesn't work. So we do a positive reinforcement. It's not deception based, it's in the browser, and we walk you through and teach you a rubric. Okay, sender, subject, greeting, spelling, emotional and urgency, integrity of the email, links, attachments. Learn this, practice this, pick and choose safe and unsafe indicators. We go over and over again. We create muscle memory in little 30-second intervals, all for free at
Definitely.
cyberhoot.com/individuals. That's my company, CyberHoot. You see the logo over my shoulder.
Hmm.
So first and foremost, if you're listening to this, you want a little bootstrapping for yourself, you can stay in the platform for as long as you want. We create 12 new videos a year, and you'll get this hootfish exercise every 3 months. And you should be a leg up at that moment as you go through those things. But for companies that want to take that to the next level, they can sign up and pay for a subscription. But we
Right. That
basically
helps the employees learn how to do it for themselves personally and of course to protect the company. So,
exactly right. But what makes it somewhat unique in the industry, and there's the inkling and hint of other companies jumping on board this, is the psychology. So if I took a step back and just added one statement about where Craig came from and what is he about, I also was enrolled in teachers college at one point. I wanted to teach because I had a passion for cybersecurity and teaching. And gosh, if only they paid teachers a livable wage, I would
Yeah.
be a teacher today. So
Right.
if you took a Venn diagram of psychology, education, cybersecurity, the center of it is really defining who I am, and what we do at CyberHoot is the overlap of those three things. And that's what's unique in the industry of cybersecurity training, cyber smart, smarter online safety,
Hmm.
is taking the psychological approach that rewards good behaviors,
Hmm.
but then goes a little bit beyond that because there are other principles in psychology that encourage and foster engagement. If you imagine, another analogy is dog training, and I like to use this analogy because everybody immediately understands the significance of this analogy. You can train a dog in two ways, with a shock collar or with treats.
Hmm.
Which would you rather use as the owner of the dog, and which do you think the dog would rather have? Treats
Yes.
every time.
Yeah.
A dog trained with treats that goes to the dog park will bring you the leash and say, "Take me to the park. I want to have some fun."
Hmm.
The other dog will disengage. They'll stop wanting to participate. They'll go curl up in a corner or get violent or vicious, right?
Hmm.
And that's what's been happening too often in our cybersecurity programs with the military background that you quite eloquently identified. Which what that means is you're not starting from zero with people. You're starting from a deficit where people have been punished so often, they
Right.
don't want to try and learn. They're afraid of learning because that's
Mhm.
a shock. That's a failure. That's a public shaming. It's a termination of employment if you do it three times. So we have to bring people up to engagement levels by
Mhm.
creating gamification
Mhm.
and making it fun again for people to participate. So what we do is we introduce anonymous leaderboards in our platform. We give certificates of completion in our platform, which include 15 minutes of continuing education credits. All of these things are designed to bring people up to that level where they're willing to learn and listen again because
Right.
they've been punished so often. They've been shamed too much.
Well, and I
And
love that because whether you're somebody who uses an Xbox or somebody who does Sudoku, with paper and pencil, everybody loves gamification or loves the enjoyment of winning and doing well at something
Mhm.
that is recreational rather than just academic. And you're taking the
Yes,
best of all of that into the
correct.
trainings and stuff because we've all seen phishing training fail for individuals and stuff for all the reasons you said. If you're going to
Mhm.
if you know that you can get safer and that you just have to endure a certain amount of electric shocks, you're going to put it off.
That's so
But
true.
if you're going to get a cupcake at the end, you're more
You're gonna get
likely to do
rewarded.
it. So that kind of sums all that up for sure. I love that. So what do you think? Let's just talk about the pragmatic part of all of this because
Sure.
you see, I mean, you and I see the same sort of stories every day and we get the same briefings, but we see the horrible things that are happening to individuals and to families and to innocent people who do not deserve to be in harm's way, and
Right.
they are. What we talked about MFA, we've talked about not reusing passwords, we've talked about freezing credit. What are a couple of other key things that you want to make sure people understand that they could do? And they could do right now to protect themselves and their money, protect their paycheck, protect their families, protect their
Mhm.
businesses,
Mhm.
protect, or if they're, solo or single, protect, themselves and their future, frankly. How do you protect your
Right.
future?
Well, again, if I go back to the earlier point of enrolling in our free program, we're going to teach you about some of the emerging threats, the things that haven't happened yet, where we go, oh, we need to teach people about overpayment scams. When you sell something on Facebook Marketplace and someone sends you $300 for a $100 item, don't refund the $200 because the money they sent you is bogus. It's on a stolen credit card. It'll be rejected. It won't come to you. So
It's
you're
gonna, so
sending,
it's gonna get, so if you sell something, let's just walk through this. So I'm somebody, I put something out, I sell it for 50, let's say I say it's $30.
yeah,
Somebody sends me 300, like that's a typo though.
exactly.
And then I'm gonna, as a good human being, I'm gonna feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna refund that. But that's not
$270.
their real money. That's a hacker or scammer who's gotten a hold of some
A
other poor
credit card.
person's credit
Yes.
card or bank account or whatever, some way of transferring money. and it's paying. So it's going to get revoked and it's going to be revoked, period.
Correct.
Um, the other thing is that then they're doing this. This actually happened to me years ago when I sold something on
Yeah.
Facebook Marketplace. And let's just be clear. Facebook has 2 billion people on it, right?
Yeah.
A quarter of the world is on Facebook. I understand that. It is, but it is, anybody who's ever seen the original Star Wars, it is worse than the Star Wars bar when it comes to who's
Yeah,
on it
that's
with you.
right.
And
Yes.
I had that happen. I was selling a telescope and somebody bought it. And so they were sending me the money, and then I went and they were going to pay me for the shipping as well. So I went down to UPS. So first of all, I have this telescope that was brand new, still in the box, never opened.
Hmm.
And then it was $120 to ship this thing
Right.
across the country. And I was starting to get caught. This was before I got into cybersecurity, right? But I
Oh,
started to
okay.
get caught in the scam where
Mhm.
they were going to pay me not through this way or that way, the
Yeah, there's
traditional
always some
Venmo or
payment
whatever. I need you
curveball.
to, well, through my business, I have to use this one. And then you just set up an account and then I can give you the money. And all of a sudden it became very, no, 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 and then I started, Google searching it and realizing, no, this is a big scam. As
Hmm.
soon as I set this account up, they're basically getting access to that number because the link they're
Yeah.
giving me is basically I'm giving them my information in their account for all intents and purposes.
Mhm.
And now I'm paying to send them my merchandise. And on top of all that, they're getting access to my account. And I was just like, wow, what a racket.
Right.
And I also thought, how could this possibly be happening? Because it's on US soil, right? I was shipping it from
Happens
the
all the
West
time.
Coast to the East Coast.
Hmm.
And so I even called the police back there to where the shipping address was. And they said, oh, sorry, we get so many calls about these things. And
Hundreds of these every day. We can't
they're
look into them.
fighting, murderers and child abusers and bank
Yeah,
robbers, and they do not have time to go chasing down the UPS shipment that you shouldn't
that's
have
right.
made. And people don't realize that. They think they're going to get help. So tell this story, but I wanted to give that account because this is
It
now me, the
happens.
queen of online safety, with that thing in my history that almost happened to me. And I thought
Right.
this could so easily it's like opening your front door to a stranger who's dressed like a ninja. It's just not a good
Yeah.
idea.
And I'll be truthful, there's 100 other examples that I could give you of
Yeah.
real scams that occur, from romance scams
Yeah.
to donation scams to emergency relief funds for a tornado in Texas or Oklahoma where they stand up an emergency. Donate to the families and children. They put up these heart-wrenching
Oh,
images.
yes.
It's a bogus scam. You're donating to a hacker. So,
Let's please talk about that for a second because there's a lot of
sure.
things going on right now around on the news, a whole bunch of things all over the world and all over the country.
Mhm.
This is a very timely topic because people will, we'll all see them. And here's the other thing. If it gets posted and you have a friend donate 20 bucks and then they share it,
Mhm.
I'm not double checking
Right.
the
You need
origin
to check
because my
all of it.
friend Joe or Joanna, send it to me. So I'm assuming it's good because they sent it. So that's the psychology of trust,
Right.
right?
It's the
So,
social proof of a friend donating, and suddenly that social proof is enough to suspend any suspicion on your part.
yeah.
But Charity Navigator is your friend. Go to that website, look up the
Say that again.
charity,
Spell that for people. So cherry like the
Charity
fruit.
Navigator. So it's
Yes.
CHARITY,
Sorry.
Navigator,
Oh,
NAV.
that one. I'm sorry. There's another. Okay. So say that one more
That's
time for
one.
everybody.
There's probably others. You can
I know another one, but
cascade
I like
eye
this
of two
one.
or
Okay.
three. But the point is always verify where your funds are going, whether it's a sale, whether it's a person in need, whether it's
Hmm.
a charity, whether it's an overpayment, any of
Right.
these things. There are scams popping up every single day.
Right.
And AI is your friend. Ask it, does this email sound legitimate? And it'll
Hmm.
say for you, absolutely not. This is a scam. Don't do it.
Right. Let's double click on this since we're giving advice on this one
Please.
thing. So what you can also do is ask it, where can I want to help the victims of X, whatever that
Mhm.
was, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane or an earthquake
Yes.
or something. What is a legitimate charity that I can donate to? And also there's another good reason to do that. Some charities give 95, it's just complete pass through, like 99.99% of your dollar
Mm-hmm.
goes there. Others take 30% off for administrative things. So
Exactly
what
right.
percentage of your dollar do you want going to help the victims? So there's a good reason. And this is where AI could be your friend. I love that because that wasn't around, 10 years ago. So you can ask it, what's the best place? And then you can go to a known good
Yes.
source. You can stop the hacker who's perpetuating this thing. And thirdly, you
Right.
can also reply to your friend's request and everybody you know and say, don't donate. I don't recommend you donate to this because this is what chat says, but here's where you can. And then you
That's
can
right.
stop the telephone game of, which is how these things get spread, right? With that
Yep.
trust.
100%.
So that's great
And,
advice.
and
Always look for
so
something before you donate.
exactly right. But these things evolve over time. And so with I hate to bring it back, but subscribe to any service that does educational, like SOS. Listen to the podcasts, subscribe to CyberHoot's free thing because next year we're going to put 12 new videos out that will cover the new evolving scams that have changed since last year. And you want to stay current on this. This is like, say, physical fitness. You can't go to the gym once a year and get fit. You
Right.
have to go religiously one, two times, three times a week for short
Mhm.
intervals. It could be high intensity, 5 minutes at a time. And
Mhm.
HIT training proven to work for your heart health and your cardiovascular and all that stuff. So you don't have to spend hours and hours monthly on this. You can spend very short amounts of time
Mhm.
learning these things, but it's the practice, it's the repetition that
Mhm.
creates the muscle memory for email security, for the emerging scams, all of that. Just educating yourself, being a lifelong learner is what's going to save you and having a healthy degree of skepticism because the internet has put every last person on the planet, how many are there? 8 billion, on our
Mhm.
doorstep, in our inboxes.
Right. I think I saw 8.3. I think we
Yeah,
actually hit 8.3.
it's an enormous number.
Mhm.
And so you have to be a little more skeptical than what you would do meeting someone in person. I mean, you need to be skeptical in person too, but
Right.
not in some communities of people. It's
Right.
just that you can't trust anything that comes into your inbox or
Right.
what you see online or what you sell online or who you communicate with online. You have to be skeptical and you
Right.
need to educate yourself on these things.
What's another widespread or let's do this. What's another widespread scam that you see happening? And then what's an emerging scam that most people haven't heard about yet?
Okay. Another widespread scam is I'm trying to think if it's widespread for everybody because the first example was a financial scam, but it was
Hmm.
tied to business email compromise. That doesn't happen to everybody every day.
Hmm.
Let me think about it. One that's happened recently. Um, we talked about the romance scams. We talked about, um, goodness, we've got
What's
the
hitting? What do you
opioid.
see hitting families?
So the one that pops into mind that all families need, and this is a very good tip for everybody, is
Mhm.
to have a family safe word that you only share with your immediate, your parents, your kids, maybe aunts and uncles, that sort of thing. It's a very special, super secret safe word. And you don't
Mhm.
share it, you don't publish it, you don't write about it in email, you share it at Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas, whatever time you're together, you say, listen, if grandma gets a phone call from her grandson that he's been put in jail and it sounds like
Mhm.
his grandson,
Mhm.
it might not be her grandson.
Mhm.
It might be a deep fake. And the
Mhm.
single best question you can ask is, yeah, Johnny, I know you're in jail and I know you need bail money and I'm happy to help. However, you know we have a family safe word. What is it? Even
Mhm.
if you don't have one, pretend to have one because suddenly Johnny will hang up and say, oh, darn it, I
That's
found
true.
one
If
of
the
those.
hackers think, uh-oh, we got one of these
We got
families.
a smart
We
person on the call.
we
So
got
that
one of these
code,
families, yeah.
yeah, that code word, and you should have one. Don't pretend to have one when you don't have one. If you can set one up ahead of time, that's great. We see this tied into financial institutions where the
Mhm.
CEO, CFO, they're being impersonated, and
Mhm.
AI can do what's called a deep fake. You
Mhm.
might have seen this on America's Got Talent. They resurrected Elvis to sing a song, but it was real singers in the background, and they just
Mhm.
converted the song singer's voice to Elvis's voice. They put Elvis's body on the singer, and it was, for all intents and purposes, very believable. And that was 2 or 3 years ago when they first
Right.
were able to do this. Now they can have a dialogue with that person as though they're talking to Elvis or talking to
Mhm.
Nixon or talking to whomever. So
Hmm.
it could be a family member because all of our kids and most of us, our generation, have some verbal, some video, some voice online somewhere. And
Right.
if you have a 4 to 5 second snippet, it can be converted into a deep fake to impersonate that person.
Right. So
So
that's
this,
really good advice. And we've talked about that a little bit on here, but I love the examples you give because it is totally true. If Abraham Lincoln and George Washington can be resurrected for the United States of America's 250th anniversary,
exactly right.
then and I think that's the other thing. So many people we're all used to thinking, if you're over the age of 25, you've still grown up with this was happening with big studios or this was happening with big
Yeah.
budgets. And the fact that hackers can get these tools for free or definitely under $100 a month for a subscription for really kind of tools that Hollywood used to dream about and George
Yes.
Lucas had to create Industrial Light and Magic to even, try to accomplish. It's just staggering. It's I think that again, psychology. I think it's hard for our human brains to comprehend that something that used to be very, very few number of people on the planet knew how to do and cost, hundreds of millions of dollars could somehow be that inexpensive and accessible. I think the
Yeah.
scale in the timeline has just it's hard to grasp. So I love that you made it so tactical and practical for everybody.
And it's actually happened to my family.
Yeah.
I've been a firsthand, just to your point, you've had firsthand experience with the overpayment scam.
Hmm.
My mother called one day, I need to go to the bank. I'm like, why do you need to go to the bank? I just need to go to the bank. Just can you pick me up? Because she stopped driving. She was older.
Hmm.
So we get in the car and I'm trying to tease out of her why we're going to the bank because it's unusual. And finally she lets me know that, you know, my brother's son had a car accident. He called her, he needed money, and it's a real story. And so we said, let's just double check this because I'm a cyber professional. I called the gentleman, I called the grandson. Hey, hi, Craig. Hi, Uncle Craig. How you doing? I'm good. Are you okay? 100%. I'm just ready to go out to lunch. You in the neighborhood want to grab some lunch? Her face drops. What do you mean? I was just talking to you 3 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes ago, etc. So it can happen to
Right.
anybody, but you have to be aware that this problem exists so you can prepare and ask the right questions and
Right.
be able to ask for the code word,
Hmm.
clarify it all, right?
Right.
Because and this gets even worse with elderly folks who didn't grow up with
Hmm.
computers. They trust
Hmm.
everybody just about, and it's
Hmm.
sometimes almost it's extraordinarily difficult to educate them away from their natural born trust
Right.
to see that these
Well,
things do happen.
it's so true, but you bring up a really important point. And I think, one of the challenges from a psychology perspective is people don't want to become untrusting. And what I like to say is you can still trust your grandchild. You
Yes,
just can't
absolutely.
trust that a voice you're hearing on the phone or a video you're seeing on a two-dimensional electronic device is your grandchild.
Exactly right.
So just trust your grandchild and trust that you need to confirm that they really are your grandchild. And if you think of it that way, it's less psychologically jarring.
Hmm. And it
What's that?
extends to every other communication medium. If you
Yeah,
can't see them, it's even easier to impersonate someone's email account,
right,
right? You have to check that the letters of the domain that the person sending you an email saying they're your grandson or saying they're your
right,
uh, financial consultant is who they say they are, right?
right,
Because oftentimes people have broken into accounts or they've registered a different domain name that has an S on the end of the domain. So if you're
right.
dealing with a financial advisor at wellsfargo.com and suddenly you get an email from wellsfargos.com, but it's
Hmm.
your financial advisor, it's not your financial advisor. It's a
Right.
hacker who's registered a domain name, is impersonating your advisor, is going to ask you to wire money to the wrong place.
Hmm.
All of these things are subtle differences that we all need to learn and know about,
Right.
but it is imminently
Well, and
understandable.
that's really on the rise too. So I think that's a perfect one for what he's seeing emerging because the numbers on that are going up. And I went back and double checked the statistics, and from 20 from the time that ChatGPT launched,
Hmm.
in the next 3 years and 2 months, the cyber crime statistics of cybercrime incidents reported doubled
Yeah.
206%.
And it was already
It was
enormous.
already enormous. So that's and again, that's just even the people who are reporting it. And even the FBI director guesses that's only 10 to 15%.
Mhm.
So with that you, this is great advice that everybody needed to hear to be smarter and safer online. I love that. And I want to thank you and commend you for the great work you're doing and giving your tools away for free to individuals. And you're letting the corporations, keep your business going, and then you're
Keep the lights
offering
on, yeah.
those, yeah, and then you're offering those tools to individuals so they can protect themselves and their families. So let's have you repeat that again because it's so important. Everybody, you
Sure.
can't, you're going to get great training. I highly recommend this. So give them
Thank you.
the website one more time, please.
Yes, it's cyberhoot.com, cyberhoot.com/individuals with an S on the end. You can
Mhm.
register there. You need to provide your name and your email address. Otherwise, we can't deliver our assignment. So just be aware that's going to be something we ask you for. And
Mhm.
from there, you'll be enrolled. You'll receive a monthly video, a quarterly phishing simulation, and if you need anything else, you can reach out to sales@cyberhoot.com or support@cyberhoot.com, and you can register
Mhm.
that way if you need an extra hand
And I
registering.
think there's something even more important. It's going to be treats instead of electric shock.
100% treats, yes. Fun.
So that is so awesome.
Our tagline is laugh, learn, hoot up. And as you progress, I don't know if you see on my other shoulder, I have like a Pokemon card. You get different levels. I'm at level 6 because I've gone through all the training. I created the training. But each person starts out at a baby owl in a nest, and then they get a little more older owl, and they grow all the way through until you have a shield and armor and all this stuff. And it's sort of meant to represent your cyber literacy journey. So we're
Right.
trying again in multiple different ways to make it fun and enjoyable.
And by the way, I like recommend this is a great thing when you want to do training with family members or friends. You do it together. You kind of gamify and have a leaderboard against each other. One of
Yes.
you is trying, you're all trying to get to Wise Owl Sage first. You're all starting there, and it's instead of there's nothing wrong with Xbox or anything else, well, there are some video games out there that I'm not fond of and wish
Yeah.
weren't not invented because they're not helping humanity. But this one is. So if you want to
Yes.
do something productive, you can do this with your kids, especially you have teenagers and everybody. You all learn together. Bring your grandparents in, bring your neighbors in. This is a
Mhm.
wonderful thing. Get this started, started now, and then at the holidays you can give out awards. You can do your own treat, reward, incentive within your family. But the best way you can use your time to have fun, if you do game night, start doing this for a few
Yeah,
weeks, do this as well.
sure.
So I just really want to thank you, Craig, for all that you're doing in the
You.
world and in community. And thank you for being on our show.
My pleasure, Jocelyn. It's been a real pleasure to be here. I hope we saved some people some difficult situations.
That's awesome. Well, and that is so true because until next time, stay safe out there.